Hi, everyone. Good evening. It is Wednesday, September 24th, 2025, and I am coming to you live tonight because I have some things that I've been pondering. I am Dr. Messina Morris, the world's first Metaversity Director. I am a professor, but I'm also a biomolecular chemist by training, a VR pioneer who created the world's first Metaversity. I am an entrepreneur who runs a consulting agency, Metaverse United, and a school, One Metaversity, where we help people find where they belong in the embodiment of the internet called the metaverse. You can find more about me at unitethemetaverse.com. So today, I want to discuss some things that have been on my mind that are super important because a number of things came out this week and I just can't not talk about it. So, the first thing is last week I participated in a panel discussion for the Chronicle of Higher Education, and it was about the AI University. And so, me and my colleagues, Brian Alexander, Scott Latham, who wrote the article, and Ian Willem, all came together and had a really rigorous and powerful discussion about the state of AI, the state of AI in higher education, in educational institutions, and what that meant for the future. The interesting thing about this is it started a litany of questions in my head about what does it mean to be AI forward as a university? What would that mission statement look like? What would be the core pillars for AI's faculty, for AI's infrastructure, for AI's ethos? Like, what would that really look like? What would the curriculum framework be? And what does that mean for education as a whole overall? But that wasn't the thing that triggered me to necessarily have this particular conversation. What drove me is an article that came out yesterday about the United States of America. So our president, Donald Trump, announced yesterday that he was going to increase the fees for H-1B visas. Well, not necessarily yesterday. He says on September 19th, 2025. I just read the article yesterday. Okay. So he issued a proclamation requiring employers to pay a one-time fee of $100,000 for each H-1B petition that was filed after September 1st, 2025. So this dramatically increases the cost for companies who previously paid between $2,000 and $5,000 for these H-1B visas, okay? So these H-1B visas are important because they support skilled immigrants' ability to work in the labor force in the United States of America. Now, I'm a biomolecular chemist and I got my degree from Emory University, and half of our department was being educated that was being educated at the time of my PhD in 2000, 2008 were from China. And their country paid for them to be there, and a lot of them needed visas to work and to continue to work in the United States. What's really interesting about the impact is that this particular increase is being supported by a number of technology companies that are using AI, but also use skilled immigrants and hire them to help to build the next level of super intelligence. And I found this to be a bit interesting, but also found it to be concerning. And then I just started thinking about, we're sitting here talking about the AI university, and higher education in America? And this is the question that I ask. So I use artificial intelligence a lot. One of my favorite AI tools or chats to use is Chat GPT-5. And so I just asked the question because I was talking about AI forward universities, and I was reading through other articles that support AI forward universities. And I'm also a professor at a higher ed institution. And I was wondering, what is the labor market shortage in the United States of America when it comes to talent in emerging technologies that keeps us bringing in immigrants from India and China primarily? And then the next question was, what should we be educating our students for in the United States that we aren't, but India and China are? And so, honestly, that started like a rapid fire in my mind. Just asking the question was, are we even educating our students for the right thing? Even in the age of AI, and we talk about AI being something that we want to integrate into our systems in higher education, but even in K-12, I was sitting here thinking, are we even asking the right questions? Are we even doing the right things? Because when it comes to the labor market shortage, the United States is chronically short on applied emerging tech talent, especially not just AI, machine learning, engineering, but cybersecurity, semiconductors, which includes chip design and fab technicians, quantum and advanced battery, clean energy manufacturing. So, what ends up happening is employers in the United States backfill these positions with global experts that most often come from India and China. But that's not necessarily a new thing or an issue, but it is an issue when we start talking about the emergence of AI in education, and exactly why are we as American higher ed institutions or even K-12 institutions focused on the level of reading being low? Okay, you need to be able to read, you need to be able to write, you need arithmetic. But this is my thing: our kids spend an enormous amount of time, energy, and effort in school. We spend 40 hours a week at work. They spend about 40 hours a week at school. They have homework to do. A lot of it is repetitious work. I have an 8-year-old who's Generation Alpha. I have a 29-year-old that is generation, well, he's the end of the beginning or the beginning of millennials. And then I have a Gen Zer, a couple Gen Zers in my family. And then I have this Gen Alpha baby. Um, and I'm Gen X. And my mom and dad are about different generations and the need um, for the workforce. I see someone in my comments on LinkedIn said, one thing I do believe as a college student and CEO, a lot of higher education, I would assume, do not know what to do. And then a lot of companies are so eager to replace it. Workers with AI, that they forgot that workforce development is super important in AI. And AI can't replace everything. So I definitely think building a resilient workforce to innovation, not only AI, because there are more technologies on the horizon. Correct. There are so many more emerging technologies that are going to take precedent in the next iteration of what work looks like. And we are still educating for doctors, lawyers, engineers for the 1990s. for the 2000s, not for 22nd century future skills that need to build. People are still using whiteboards when we need to be using extended reality technologies. So that's beyond the point. But the short answer is the U.S. is chronically short on applied emerging technology talent. And it used to be where you could have a small percentage of the population be skilled in these particular technologies, but that's not the case now. The case is that probably 70% of the people, no matter what their discipline is, need to have understanding and comprehension and proficiency in these areas. And so the talent gaps in the United States are most acute for, like I said, AI and machine learning engineers, data plus machine learning operations. So demand outruns supply, and multiple studies show a 3-to-1 imbalance. Job ads for AI roles surged far faster than overall job postings through 2024-25, says PwC. AI Job Barometer, says Keller Executive Search Briefing. Cybersecurity, so defense, cloud, OT, critical infrastructure. There's a persistent national gap tracking at over 450,000 job postings, where supply versus demand is imbalanced completely across states. You have semiconductors, EDA, RTL design, verification, equipment, fab techs, process engineers. There was a CHIPS bill or CHIPS Act, but that didn't really drive expansion. There's greater than 115,000 additional workers needed by 2030. Some needs actually exceed 160,000 workers across the value chain of semiconductors. Quantum computing, sensing, secure comms. So a large share of these roles have gone unfilled. Demand isn't just for physicists, but for software engineers and product leaders who are quantum literate. You have clean energy, which includes batteries and power electronics, EV storage, the grid. We start talking about data centers. There's a rapid sector growth. There's insufficient skilled labor, especially battery manufacturing, techs, engineers, and high voltage electricians. In the bioeconomy / biomanufacturing, so symbio, cell / gene therapy, bioprocess. I actually did a podcast on this with Virtuosi, VR 2022. About cell gene therapy, necessary, the needs for bioeconomy and biomanufacturing, but federal strategy flags workforce capacity as a constraint to actually scaling U.S. production. Production has been scaled in European nations, but over in America, there's not capacity. And then when Trump talks about the H-1B visas in the fiscal year 2024, 71% of approved H-1B visa petitions were for Indian nationals. And China comes in second, and most of their H-1Bs are in computer occupations. So that brought me to another brainstorm of things. Like, what is China and India doing differently to focus on their pipeline that we are not doing in America? This is important. This is not just important because everyone's like, this AI, this race to AI is almost like the Cold War. This is about geopolitical power extremes. This is about the race for energy. This is about who is going to control the global, who's going to be the global power in the future. All depends on this now. And so if we are backfilling jobs in the United States because we don't have the current talent, that poses a national security issue, because a lot of these jobs are dealing with high risk, high security infrastructures within the United States. And it's a different war we're fighting in education now. Like, it's not just you need to be literate. You need to, when we say digital and digital fluency, and we have digital natives that don't understand the technologies, we're talking about the need for earlier and broader K-12 exposure to AI, to coding, to robotics. What created Bill Gates, what created Elon Musk, what created Mark Zuckerberg, what created all of these Steve Jobs, what created these great men in these technical with technical acumen to build these companies that we love and we know and we participate and partake in so much, is the fact that when they were young, their parents molded them in educational environments and even in the home where they were tinkerers. They tinkered with electronics. They tinkered with tools of the future, computers, parts. They were tinkerers. They were trial and error. They were thought thinking. They were reading higher level complex things in subject areas, not because they learned it in school, but because they had a fascination with it and that thing was cultivated. So what I'm saying is, what is India and China doing differently, not just in education? I can tell you what they're doing differently in education, but even as they're rearing their children, what their eye is on a different prize than the eye in America. And what I am terribly concerned about is the lackadaisical way in which we are comfortable with being right now. We've become too comfortable with being the global leader in everything. And there are people, countries, nations that are hungry for the ability to be number one. And so the state of America and what America is and who we are is all at risk because we're not educating for the right things. Okay, so what are India and China doing differently is they have a different pipeline focus. Earlier and broader K-12 exposure to AI, coding, and robotics. So in India, for instance, as of 2020, AI and coding is introduced from class 6 with national handbooks and teacher facilitation. They have a large scale tinkering infrastructure where they have 10,000 plus ATAL tinkering labs that are expanding further across India. In China, they have a top-down AI education mandate, AI literacy guidance for primary and secondary schools, pilots, textbooks. They have a new engineering initiative since 2017 to modernize university engineering curricula. In some regions like Beijing, they're moving to mandatory AI instruction. And then they have skill and specializations in their universities. So China rapidly authorized AI majors, launched model-specific coursework in DeepSeek across top universities. India continues to graduate very large cohorts of engineers while expanding their hands-on STEM in the ATAL labs, the tinkering labs. What we should be educating US students for and often aren't, starting in K-12, making it hands-on. Back in the day when the reason why I'm a biomolecular chemist now is because they started STEM education early. I was exposed to chemistry, meteorology, or ornithology, microbiology, ecology, all at a very, very young age. I was fast tracked on like a STEM pathway. It was no getting out of it. It got to the point where we didn't even take history. We didn't even take certain subjects because it wasn't necessary. We only took science and mathematics very heavily in high school by the time we got there. We were in gifted programs and programs where we tinkered, where we were in Event America competitions, where we were innovating. We were pegged as the next leaders in STEM. So I am exactly who I hoped I would be and exactly who they hoped I would be in all of these programs that I was fast tracked into this talent pipeline all the way through to the doctorate. So even my scholarship program in college at Clark Atlanta University, Prism D, was about the M and the D matriculation to the doctorate for science and mathematics matriculation to the doctorate. And it was funded by the Office of Naval Research, this 5-year bachelor's master's program that then helped you matriculate to your doctorate on an accelerated rate. And so what I'm saying is, what in the United States are we not doing now? And why are our children, okay, like I am on a rant now. Listen, our children are spending time on TikTok and on Instagram and on Snapchat, and all of that's great and fun and that's nice, but that's not going to prepare you for being the global leader of the future. That's not adequate preparation. You being checked out and doom scrolling on your phone and on your tablet, and that is the wrong use of the right tool. So there's nothing wrong with tablets, there's nothing wrong with phones, but there was another article that just recently came out yesterday about vibe coding. I think it was a Forbes article. Yes, it was a Forbes article about vibe coding and how prompt-based AI is transforming software development. And AI researcher Andre Karpathy was introduced the term vibe coding to describe something many developers and organizations had already been experimenting with behind the scenes, and that's building software by conversing with AI instead of manually typing every line of code. Our young people who are spending all the time on these tools that they don't have any idea are powerful should be spending their time at least vibe coding. That's the least of it. But what aren't we doing in education? We're not educating United States students for, in K-12, making it hands-on, computational foundations by grade 8, coding, Python and block-based, discrete math, probability, statistics, data literacy, data science, data cleaning, leading to visualization. We're not educating United States students right now with AI literacy by grade 9 and 10. That means supervised versus unsupervised learning, model bias and safety, prompt design, evaluation basics. We're not educating our United States students in robotics plus embedded systems, microcontrollers. And I've done so many programs, summer programs where certain students and parents do send their kids and they learn about Arduino and sensors and actuators and intro to edge AI, but there are not enough. Did you hear what I'm saying? That 71% of the jobs right now are being filled by India and China. And even with the increase of H-1B visas going from $2,000 to $5,000 all the way to $100,000 per petition, companies are like, yeah, because the need is great. They're with it. They don't care. They'll pay the cost to be the boss because the need is great. But that means that you're increasing another nation's GDP as well. And it's not the United States. So what we're not doing in K-12 is cyber hygiene to cybersecurity pathways, from password hygiene to SOC simulations, cloud security labs. We're not doing anything with AWS Academy or Azure. We're not using makerspaces. We're not allowing students to have makerspaces within their schools. There are no makerspaces in all United States schools. Like there were computer labs in all United States schools. It started with one Apple computer, but people then gradually moved to having computer labs. Well, we need makerspaces. Our students need to be making and tinkering at scale. We need to fund the United States equivalents of these ATALs, these tinkering institutions that are happening all across India in middle and high schools, with maker spaces that have CAD and CAM and 3D printing and PCB milling. India scaled this nationally, and all we have in the United States are pockets. Okay. In undergraduate education, we don't have career-ready tracks that are mapped to these shortages either. This is a problem. This is a national security issue. Okay. So there's not AI engineering tracks where linear algebra plus probability plus optimization plus software engineering for machine learning operations plus data engineering plus evaluation and monitoring, capstones with real data sets that align with a demonstrated AI demand, not happening in undergraduate higher education, not in enough of them. Semiconductor tracks for circuits, for digital design, for Verilog, for VLSI, for EDA tool chains, for test and verification, for clean room process labs, equipment maintenance, safety, technician ladders for fab roles. This is supposed to be a part of the CHIPS initiative, but these workforce projections are stuck in a stagnant bottleneck of bureaucracy and is not happening right now in the United States in undergraduate institutions. Cybersecurity track, secure coding, cloud security, incident response, red blue team exercises mapped to NICE and CyberSeek roles, which aligns to over 450,000 job postings right now that we can't fill in the United States of America. Cybersecurity quantum literate engineers. We don't have linear algebra and complex systems plus intro quantum info algorithms with toolkits plus control electronics and cryo basics for hardware curious students. So we're not doing anything on the hardware front or making them quantum literate in engineering, battery and clean engineering manufacturing, which is huge, materials science, electrochemistry, plus battery pack and thermal BMS, high voltage safety mechatronics, and apprenticeship linked programs tied to DOE battery workforce challenge hubs, not happening. In biomanufacturing, we don't have bioprocess engineering, upstream, downstream, GMP, QC, automation with Delta V, and regulatory science, which is explicitly linked to the National Bio Workforce Plan. And then for graduate and professional level, there needs to be a multiplication of impact. That's happening in India and China. It's not happening in the United States. So tech plus leadership, product plus policy, AI product management, safety and red teaming, IP and data governance. Oh my God. Ed tech commercialization. So graduates actually build responsible systems and not just prototypes. And so the biggest question is like, why do we keep importing talent from India and China? And in real time, like not building our United States talent pipeline in a way that is thoughtful, that is real, and keeps us behind the 8 ball and pretty much losing, is that we're not doing anything at scale. So India and China expose far more students to coding and AI earlier and in a more standardized way. They have national curricula, they have tinkering labs, they have mandated AI literacy. They're producing larger candidate pools for entry-level roles in graduate study, and we are sitting in committee. We are sitting in committee and having conversations and talking and not doing. And Generation Beta's here, by the way. Generation Beta just born this year. Generation Alpha, they're growing up. We're doing them a disservice. The lifestyle that they have now is not the lifestyle they're going to have in the future in America. No. One, if you look at household median incomes, Asian Americans far exceed in incomes now, above Caucasians, above Blacks, African Americans, above Latino households, like literally in America, you have India and China ruling the wages and increasing wages in their households, which that money filters back to their countries and not the American system. So U.S. demand for these things, though, far outweighs domestic production in AI, cyber, chips, quantum, and batteries. And you have companies and firms that actually recruit globally for those people who qualify for H-1B and that can fill these specialized roles. And Indians and Chinese dominate H-1B approvals in computing-related jobs, which are the highest paying jobs in America. So what should we do? How do we design education for the shortage and not just for the sake of being educated and having a catalog of courses that you will never use in your life, that will never provide value to the needs of the United States of America and our GDP? But we need to get busy about talking about solutions. So I have a whole nother list of solutions that need to come to the forefront. AI first certificates that braid core math with software engineering for machine learning and machine learning ops with stack credentials. We need to stand up a semiconductor academy. We need to launch a cyber blue team residency aligned with NICE roles, place students in the SOC rotations while stacking CompTIA security. Prep, add a quantum literate minor, software first with industry tool partners, partner with national labs, QIS centers, create a battery and power electronics tech pathway with DOE, Argonne. Like, we're not doing the right things. Tie in a biomanufacturing practicum with GMP facilities. Align the OSTP's bio workforce plan. Like, United States education leaders need to close this gap fast. And so here's some questions for K-12 leaders. When will you stop being in committee and mandate baseline AI coding data literacy by middle school with funded makerspaces in Title I districts first, and move on. Higher education. Why do we have survey courses? Why are there no skills to roadmaps for AI engineers, for SOC analysts, for process technicians that are co-signed by employers that are needed so that students don't graduate with $200,000 worth of debt from an education that they can't use and can't get jobs for? Accreditation. Now, how do we credential these micro skills quickly enough to actually meet the chips and clean energy timelines? We're not even meeting the timelines that we put in place because we saw the need. How do we prevent AI education from widening gaps, ensuring rural HBCU low-income learners get the same lab access and apprenticeship seats? Do you know that America was not built by people who were educated sitting in a white ivory tower? America was built by the hands of those people who people thought were uneducated, but by the brows and the backs of ingenuity, innovation, and need and necessity. America was built. America was also built on free labor. Unfortunately, that is not going to happen because it was inhumane. We're not going to do that again. So now, how do we pair smart immigration to retain top graduates so that the GDP comes back to America with domestic apprenticeships at scale so U.S. students and global talent both thrive? How are we going to do that? These are questions that need answering, and these are things that we need to be discussing and talking about. We're trying to get children just to read every night for 20 minutes. That's not going to get it. They're sifting on their phones and on the internet and just doom scrolling all day and rapping to lyrics about shaking their behinds in the mirror and TikToking and dancing and looking crazy for social media and empty-headed. And so now I, as an educator, I feel solely responsible for this fiasco because I'm in higher education. I'm K-12 certified. I'm a biomolecular chemist with a PhD. I have business degrees. I have certifications. I have all of these things. And I've been screaming from the rooftop that we need to get moving. And I'm trying to do it nice. And now I can't be nice anymore because I'm reading articles that are going to greatly devastate us as Americans. And no, people are asleep. And I can't figure out why people are asleep because we're behind the 8 ball. America's talent pipeline is capping our future, but it's supercharging others. And so this is a thesis. The United States isn't just in an AI race, people. We're in a systems race. Education leading to talent, to then industry, to national capacity. And while we debate H-1B fees, India and China are retooling K-12 and higher education at scale for AI, chips, quantum, cybersecurity, and clean energy. The result? Growing talent inflows from abroad to fill U.S. jobs today, and there will be a structural shift of tomorrow's GDP toward countries that are teaching to the frontier and not just to reading, writing, and arithmetic. I'm gonna let that sit there. Because in the fiscal year 2024, 71% of approved H-1B petitions were for Indian nationals. China is consistently number 2. Raising H-1B fees to $100,000 does not change that we are not prepared domestically in America for these roles. India and China are teaching to the frontier earlier and at scale. See, they got put on game, and then we unleashed AI at scale, and they are like teaching what industry hires. See, it's different when you live in a developing country or a country where you don't have certain rights and freedoms, and you're not the first in the world. You're not number one. You are consistently number two or number three, or your hands feel tied. Anybody ever been an underdog? Do you know what, do you understand what grit is? Do you understand these countries are hungry? Literally and figuratively. How long is America gonna stay America? These countries are teaching what industry hires. And we live in a capitalist society. So that means that, hey, we need people to help us get this money. And India and China figured it out. They said, you know what? They need us. You know what this gonna do? This gonna make our Indian American, Chinese American families in America wealthier. They send money back home to our nation. This raises our GDP. We're gonna start this in our schools. We're gonna mandate this across our nation. And our kids can't even spell cat, dog, rat, hog, pig. Most Americans read on a third grade level. Huh? What are we educating for? Why are our kids in classrooms 40 hours a week? Why are we, and you don't want AI to come in and help you? You've got to be kidding me right now. Asian origin households, especially Indian headed households, post the highest U.S. median incomes. That success is a feature of intense STEM education and immigration selection, not a policy to copy paste. It reveals where the labor market rewards frontier skills and how quickly global human capital fills gaps that the United States doesn't train at scale. The macro risks: talent, industry, GDP power. So if you look at OECD and IMF outlooks, so for people who don't know what OECD is, the Organization for Economic Cooperation, they design the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development is a forum and knowledge hub for data analysis and best practices in public policy. And they show the U.S. growth slowing towards 1.8% in 2025, even as AI investment props up near-term momentum, while China targets growth near 5% with heavy STEM and industrial policy. Over time, who owns the advanced manufacturing base, energy systems, and AI platforms accrues not just GDP, but geopolitical leverage. This is not alarmist. I'm not trying to make you, this is not alarmism. This is not like, it's math. It's industrial math. If the United States keeps importing the very skills we underteach, we'll keep exporting the long run value add. And it's going to catch up with us. Raising H-1B fees is not a curriculum. It's a policy reality check for you. You can increase these fees, but that does not create the supply of AI engineers, chip technicians, or cyber analysts that we need in the United States and to be grooming and growing at home domestically. The only thing that does that is curriculum as well as capacity. Meanwhile, clean energy and semiconductor expansions are outpacing domestic training pipelines. I can't think of one school off the top of my head that is doing what India and China are doing at scale. So, once again, the United States must teach by grade 8 computational thinking plus Python, discrete math, probability, statistics, AI literacy, hands-on makerspaces. In early workforce, that means high school through community college, cyber, semiconductor tech pathways, battery and grid tech, undergrad, graduate level, AI engineering, quantum literate minors, biomanufacturing. What can leaders do now? Mandate AI and data fundamentals in middle school. Fund it like literacy initiatives. You're going to have to teach kids how to read. Teach them how to read AI and code. Teach them how to vibe code. Stand up XR digital twins of labs. You can't afford them. Stand up digital twins of them. Clean rooms, SOCs, GMPs, lower training costs, widen access. Tie community college programs to open job recs. Micro-credential the verbs of work. You need to know how to operate a PVD tool. You need to tune inference pipelines. Stop just giving nouns to things. Apprenticeships first. Subsidized paid rotations with industry. Measure programs by placement and time to competency, not just seat hours. You sit in the classroom 40 hours a week, you still got homework to do. And we still don't have the talent in the areas that we need the most at home. And I'm going to close by saying this. If we teach to the frontier, we'll hire at home and export innovation again. I'm going to say it again. If we in America would teach to the frontier, we'll hire at home and export innovation again. If we don't, we'll keep importing the very capacity that compounds into others' GDP and power. So I will be back to talk about what we can do. There's another article that came out in Forbes about vibe coding and how Alexander Wang became the world's youngest self-made billionaire at 24, now 28, running one of the most ambitious AI efforts in Silicon Valley. In his first 60 days at Meta, he built a 100-person lab that is smaller and more talent dense than any other lab. And his goal is nothing less than super intelligence. And what is he doing? What did he do? And this is what he said in his interview. If you are like 13 years old, hey, Professor Ruffin, thank you for coming to Morehouse. If you are 13 years old You should spend all of your time vibe coding. That's how you should live your life. And for people who don't know what vibe coding is where developers and organizations experiment behind the scenes. They build software by conversing with AI instead of manually typing every single line of code. So you tinker with tools, different AI tools over time, experimenting, iterating, and learning. And so that is my next conversation is what do we need to be really doing with our young people? I work with several organizations like STEM NOLA that are doing those things for young people. KIPP schools are doing those things. The TRIO program, the federal program, TRIO, Upper Bound Math Science for first generation college students, they're doing those things. But all of America needs to be doing these things because once again, if we do not teach to the frontier, we'll keep importing the very capacity that compounds into others' GDP and power. And so that is my TED Talk. And that is what is heavily on my mind. And that is what I will be talking about continuously until all have heard and understand that the U.S. talent gaps are acute and that employers are backfilling jobs in America with global experts in India and China. And in America, we're not educating our young people domestically for the things that we should. So, thank you for listening. If you want to reach out to me, you can find me at unitethemetaverse.com. I also will be doing more training and credentialing of educators who want to incorporate some of these things into their curriculum by doing problem-based learning with real-world problems that address the bioeconomy and biomanufacturing, by doing XR experiences with students, using Hollow tutors, AI tutors, AI teaching assistants. But this is a dire situation, and these statistics are real. It's math. So America is behind the 8 ball. And so I refuse to continue to sit in committee and have these conversations. I am a doer. I'm a solutions-driven problem solver. And I will change the trajectory of this. I will. So you can help me by collaborating with me and helping me petition and get some things changed in our curriculums because it is dire. It is a national security issue. And it is real. It's a real threat to our national security. So that is it. You may not like AI, but it's here. And you may not like what I said, but it's the truth. And I had to say it because somehow people aren't connecting the dots. So I'm Dr. Mom, molder of minds. Maybe this conversation will mold your mind tonight. All right, take care. Find me at unitethemetaverse.com or on school.com/one metaversity.